Yeah, please start now, Tia.
Okay. Okay. Good evening to everyone who's tuning in. Today's discussion revolves around the theme of Beyond Anti-incumbency Winds of Change in Mizoram, based on an article published in EPW. We are joined by the authors of this article. Allow me to introduce our esteemed guests for the evening, Dr. Joseph K. Lalpagswala obtained his PhD from the Center for Political Studies, SSSGNU, New Delhi. He currently teaches political science in Government T. Romana College as all. His publications mainly focus on the history and politics of Northeast India. His area of interest lies in federalism, democracy, autonomy, and borderland studies. A very warm welcome to you, sir. I'll also allow me
Okay,
to
thank you.
introduce.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Allow me to also introduce our next speaker for the evening, Dr. Rola Poya, who obtained his PhD from TIS Guwahati. He is currently Assistant Professor of Sociology at Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, IIT Roorkee. He was awarded the Arvind Raghunathan and Sribilas Subramaniam South Asia Visiting Fellowship at the South Asia Institute of Harvard University. Dr. Puya's research interests broadly covers, among others, identity, nationalism, development, and borderland studies. A very, very warm welcome to you, sir.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Tia.
Thank you. So maybe we can begin with this session by understanding how your article actually describes how the rise of Zoram people's movement has earmarked a political change by ending the duopoly of Mizo National Front and the Congress in Mizoram. You contend that this rise needs to be understood within the long history of the Mizo Public Political Agency. So, could we begin by discussing the historical trends in Mizoram's politics prior to the rise of ZPM? And could you help us analyze how the party's victory in the 2023 assembly elections sort of disrupted these patterns? Professor Joseph?
Okay, thank you, Tia. The his the history of politics or political history of Mizoram is a unique one compared to other state in the northeast because this is the state which have gone through many phases of regime. First, it was a district council under Assam, autonomous district council in Assam. Then it was upgraded to union territory in 1972, and later it attained statehood in 1987. When the political class suppressed the chieftainship institution using the Indian democratic system uh, in the late 1940s and 1950s, the politics was dominated by the Mizo Union, which got the support from the Mizo commoners, we can say. On the other side is the UMFO, which was supported by the chief and its elders. The Mizo Union, they have dominated the Mizo District Council till the 1970s. But after insurgency, the Mizo Union lost their popularity. And so the Congress came in between. Actually, the Mizo Union was the party which promote the Congress ideology during that time because they wanted to integrate with the Indian state and then come up with the idea of autonomy. So from 1970 onwards, there was a political, uh, we should say, pulling each others. But from 1972 onwards, again, when it was Union territory, the Mizo Union reinvented but the interesting thing is that the Mizo Union, which dominated the political scenario of the Union territory of Mizoram, later merged with the Congress. So the Mizo Union had been gone forever, and it was the Congress which took up that Mizo Union political ideology later on. But in between, we can see that at the time of insurgency, we saw the rise of the this Brigadier T silo. He was a former army, uh, very high rank holder, and he was highly looked upon by the people during that time because he formed a peace committee. So at that time, the he formed this human rights committee, and after that, he translated that committee into a political party, PC party, in 1977 during the time of emergency, and then they won the 1978-79 election. But the interesting thing is that just in 1984, the Congress came back promising that there will be peace and prosperity uh, in the state or in the union
Hmm.
territory, and they will help the MNF come out from the underground and then form a coalition government with them. Even Lal
Right.
Thanhawala, the former chief minister, stepped down from the chief minister and then give that seat to the Laldenga, the rebel leader, we can say that. So after that, the interesting thing about the state of Mizoram is that it was dominated by two party only. So
Right.
they were forming 10 years each. 10 year it's by Congress, 10 year it's by MNF. So it keep on alternating like that. So after that, there were some strong opponent like the present chief minister. He was with the Congress, also he was with the MNF then. But in 1997, he formed a ZNP, Zoram National Movement, Zoram Nation, Z, ZNP, Zoram National Party. He formed that party. But with that, he cannot win as even a single seat in the state assembly. So then on, the two-party domination has been continued between the Congress and the MNF. But interesting thing is that in 2017, we saw the rise of many regional party. We can say that ZPM on the other side, people conference on the adding that movement who advocate for non-Congress, non-MNF party because the Congress and the MNF party has been continuously dominating with the same leaders, Laltanol and Zoram Thanga. So they try to appeal the people that if Congress continue, it will be Laltanhola who will be in the chief ministership, and if MNF continue with that ruling party, it will be Zoram Thanga will be the chief minister. So there will be no change. So they come out with the idea of Kalpungthar. Kalpungthar is something which the present chief minister is propagating for the last more than I think 15 years. 15 years now, Kalpungthar. So they try to sell that Kalpungthar to the people. So in 2018 elections, although there were, we can say that it's a new party, but it is a conglomeration of many older party. I
Right.
think it's around seven party coming together to form ZPM. So in 2017, uh, surprisingly, they took over the urban area, especially Aizawl. So from that, people started thinking that uh, the political process in Mizoram is going to be very interesting, and change can happen, especially in the urban area. From that urban area, it keep on dispersing to the rural area also. See, I'm teaching in a college. Most of the students, uh, uh, I think 70% of the students are mainly from the rural area. We have more than 1,000 students in our college.
Okay.
So when I ask the students which which party they will support, sometimes, so they say that they are not, they will go for non-Congress, non-MNF party. So that means that it is inevitably evidence that they are going to go for ZPM. And there was
Right.
also a survey among the media that uh, i- since ZPM party does not have proper block and unit system in the rural area,
Hmm.
people are not that aware compared to the urban area.
Hmm.
So when the survey was done in the rural area just before election this time to 2023 to 2023, some respondents say that some old people they say that although we are not that much aware of the ZPM policy and all these things, but our sons and daughters bring back home uh, the idea of Kalpungtar, which has been propagated by ZPM. So,
So let me intervene
for
here. Just to
yes, yes.
ask, clarify for the audience which might not be familiar with the term, could you elaborate on the concept of Kalpungta?
Kalpungtar is something which has been different from the existing. The existing means that the policy or the system followed by MNF and Congress. Uh,
Okay, lovely.
and it has been redefined again and again because the Kolpuntar, which the party president defined back in, let's say, 15 years ago, is different from a little bit reinvented in the present system. It has been reinvented. Say, for example, in the Kalpungtar, farmer will be given more importance, like that, and uh, like what the AAP has been propagating, there will be no hike in electricity, zero tolerance to corruption and all these things. So it has been reinvented and it has been becoming more diverse and diverse. I don't know where it
Right.
will end with Alpuntar. So uh, that's the things they are selling it to the people, and people also like to see the change, and they have, I think now they have seen that the ZPMD is the party which can accommodate what the people are aspiring for more than decades. So with that, I will end the first question, and if there is anything to continue, I will continue with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your insightful comments. So they very well cover the history of how the party system has sort of evolved in Mizoram. Now, coming to Professor Priya, who can perhaps build on these points and answer my next question, which is while discussing the politics of Mizoram, you mentioned the term vernacularization, a term which is often employed by social anthropologists. So, how has this idea of vernacular politics shaped the local politics in Mizoram?
Yeah. Tia, thank you again for having us, and thanks to also to APW for giving us this platform. So yes, we have stressed on the idea of vernacular in our paper, and we draw our inspiration from recent works, particularly in sociology and anthropology, that tries to understand how democracy functions in particularly in the everyday life of the people. So this works in a way tries to they try to shift our attention in terms of understanding the working of democracy at the micro level. Now, for instance, much of the literature on democracy, in particular, tends to focus on, the transition or the consolidation of democracy, basically the macro processes of, socio-political change. But what this, new literature, particularly those work that, focuses on this idea of vernacular, what they intend to do is to examine how these ideas of democracy are being reframed or, are being absorbed into the ordinary consciousness of the people. Now, there are two critical interventions, that these scholarships have. One is, they in a way, focus on the agency of the people in terms of, bringing about change.
Yes.
And second is that, it looks at, how the ideas of democracy are not something that are being imported, from the outside. That, the idea of democracy is something, that has to do with say, Western values or Western norms. But, people have the ability to adapt to local situations and, local contexts. Now, in the context of Mizoram, in the context of Mizo politics in particular, what we have seen, in post and in what we have seen in post-independent India is that Mizo's, the political grammar in Mizo society is deeply rooted, within the life world of the people. Now, in saying that, we use this idea of vernacular, we also look at, the creation of vernacular language. For instance, Kalpung Thar or Mipui Sarkar, government of the people, a new system of governance. So when this, terms, when the ZPM privilege the use of these terms, then it resonates easily with the people as well, right? And the other aspect of this verticalization of democracy is, how people themselves contribute to this democratic culture. Now, one of the most common political mobilizations, one of the most common strategy of political mobilizations in Mizoram is the use of songs. Now, political parties, since post-independence India have creatively tapped into the oral culture of Mizo society by using songs to popularize their manifestos and agendas. Now, so our ideal vernacular here is to understand and explain Mizo politics, from the socio-cultural milieu of the Mizo people. So I'll stop here. So I thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. That's a very interesting, I think, and unique way to engage with politics through music. And so you also talk about the performance and pitfalls of this politics. And in that, so how would you define the implications of the ZPM's victory on Mizoram's political landscape, considering the factors that you mention in your article, such as voter discontent or rising aspirations of the people and their rejection of the traditional political parties?
Yeah, so like Joseph already said, the rise of ZPM, has, the emergence of ZPM cannot read, without understanding the new promise that the party have, right? And as he pointed out, Mizoram attained statehood in the year 1987, and since then, what we see is that either it was the Congress or it was the Mizo National Front, which were ruling for a rotational cycle of 10 years. Now, ideally, MNF, if that same political culture was to be continued, then MNF could have enjoyed its second term. Now that is what that cycle of MNF or Congress ruling the state for 10 years is something that the ZPM has broken. Now, in terms of the performance and the pitfalls, let me start with the Congress. Now, the Congress, nationally, it's quite struggling, in the political sphere. And it is evident that even in Mizoram also, the Congress is, fighting an uphill battle. So Rahul Gandhi himself, went to the state, mobilizing the public. Somehow, there was a lot of, it has aroused the passions of the people, but then unfortunately, it does not translate into votes. So the performance of the Congress, since the 2018 elections in the state was, going down, and the vote share of the party has also declined considerably. Likewise, but however, I think it will be too early to write off, the Congress as such. It is just that, they are in a difficult phase, both regionally or, nationally. But when it comes to, say, the MNF, again, the performance of the MNF in terms of its vote share is still very, very high. And, to an extent, one can even say that, there is still a lot of, hope for MNF, to even come back, and, revive itself. But however, the rise of the ZPM, or what we call in our paper, right, the wind of change, I think is something which was already evident from the 2018 election, where, the ZPM was capable of emerging as, the main opposition party. So it was taking up, the political landscape. And this get affirmed particularly, in the more recent election that happened before the 2022 election. That was the Lunglei Municipal Corporation, where the party, swept the entire LMC. So, so the political mood, the political mood to, many of us, observers, who have been following Mizoram, it was evident that, there is a possibility of some kind of political change that is going to happen. And over a period of time, like Joseph rightly said, in the 2018 elections, the ZPM was capable to make a lot of space for itself in the urban areas. But what changed in the 2022 election is that it was capable of penetrating both urban and rural areas. It
Right.
sweep Lunglei, it sweep Aizawl, it also sweep vast pockets of rural areas, which the party was unable to do so in the 2018 elections. So
Hmm.
what changed, and I think what worked for them, was that the party was constantly trying to penetrate into these rural areas. So that
Right.
has played a major role in bringing the party into power.
Right. Right. But how have they been able to capture that demography better? Does it have to do with them trying to connect with the aspirations of people and trying to connect that chord of them not being satisfied with the current political regimes?
So am I to go again?
You can answer briefly, sir, if you'd like. Absolutely.
Joseph, do you want to go? So, or should I go again?
Continue, Puya.
Okay.
You can continue.
Okay. So, well, I think to many people, there was some kind of feeling of saturation in the whole political culture.
Mm-hmm.
Where people were no longer, the aspirations of the people also changed over a period of time. And given that,
Mm-hmm.
Mizoram has, been politically stable in the last, 30 years of its existence as a separate statehood. And I think, the
Mm-hmm.
time has come that, people aspire, more, like particularly from the government. So also, in the last few years, there has been a lot of political crisis that has been happening, such as in currently in Manipur, political crisis that is happening in Myanmar, political crisis in Bangladesh, also the Assam Mizoram border issue.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whereas the MNF was trying to project itself as a party which is a guardian of Mizo nationalism, but I
Mm-hmm.
think the ZPM, or what we call the ZPM wave, was too strong for them to reckon with. So
Okay.
by and large, the ZPM was also quite uh, let me put in this way, since for many people who have seen the performance of the MNF, the the MNF, the ruling party was unable to counter any kind of oppositional voice, and that is
Mm-hmm.
where the ZPM was very good at. And the other is that the ZPM learned lesson from the 2018 election. They realized that to really come to power, it is necessary to penetrate into the rural areas. I think so. It's not something that they just promise kalpungtha. They have done a lot of groundwork. They creatively use social media. They
Mm-hmm.
creatively tap into so particularly one significant factor is the first time voters in Mizoram, who were totally would by the ZPM. And if you can see the elected MLS from the ZPM, you will find that many of them are first time, but at the same time who are very very young. So I think the youth were also capable of connecting them to the young people, the candidates, which were being projected by the ZPM. So I think the reading of ZPM coming to power requires us to understand, the broader political context, but at the same time, how the party, identify the gaps, and at the same time, connect themselves with the vast majority of people, particularly the youths.
Absolutely. And I'll come back to the voters aspect of this discussion. But Professor Joseph, adding on to that, how maybe reflect on the influence of national political trends, such as the declining performance of the Indian National Congress, as we've discussed, and the limited impact of the Bharatiya Janata Party on Mizoram's electoral dynamics. How did these factors intersect with the local issues and shape voter behavior in the 2023 elections?
Okay, Tia, yeah, this is a very interesting case in the scenario of Mizoram politics right from independence because we unlike other state, we can say that other smaller state in the northeast, that we had not been able to see the direct influence of the national party, but at least we always saw the indirect. See, in the case of 1952 to 1970, it was the Mizo Union, but the Mizo Union has a strong connection with the Indian National Congress during that time. And then after emergency in 1978, uh, we saw the People Conference Party coming up in Mizoram, and during that time it was the Janata Party in the central. So it was the Janata Party who indirectly influenced this Mizoram politics. And if we see in the southern part, especially the Mara dominated area, Mara District Council, during 1979 election also, the two seats were captured by the Janata Party. And then see, in the case of ZPM also, it has been influenced by the national politics in the sense that, like we saw the rise of regional party like UP in Delhi. So people started in the media, like we are said, the media is controlled by the ZPM party, and they have upper hand compared to other political party in using the media and the social media, print or this other social media. So during this time also, although MNF is with the NDA, there was a very strong enmity between them. So they are attacking each other like anything. So the advantage has gone to the ZPM party, which is also the regional party, because it is seen by the people that Congress will not come up this time because there is no strong thing coming out from the center. So ZPM also took the advantage of the enmity between the BJP and the MNF. And BJP and ZPM, there is hardly any enmity during the during the election process during that time. So attack has
Okay.
been put on the MNF like anything. So that has been the advantage um, bear by the ZPM. And regarding the social media things, it is interesting that uh, the book written by, let me continue with what we have said, by
Hmm.
Rashni Kothari back in 2000s, that Rethinking Democracy, where he
Mm-hmm.
said that the technological advantage will play a very greater role in the future of democracy. So this time also we can see that uh, through the media and through the social media, Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitters, and all these things,
Hmm.
uh, it is whatever we have seen. It is always go in the advantage of this ZPM party. And the other thing is that
Okay.
ZPM party also employed the academic society. They
Mm-hmm.
use the academic body to do all the research and all these things. Like we are said, they are very
Hmm.
hardworking in the ground level also to penetrate the rural area and to develop what people aspire in that thing. So with that, I
Hmm.
will end this number five questions.
Right. And this reminds me of the sociological aspects that you do mention in your article that need to be studied when it comes to these processes, be it the employment of social media or be it the involvement of the academic bodies. Um, so, can we now trace the evolution of the deepening of democracy itself in Mizoram and the factors that have historically contributed to the same?
Should I go?
Sure, sir.
Okay. Yeah. In our reading, it's also evident in our paper that we claim that what we are seeing with the rise of ZPM is the assertion and reclaiming of politics by the people of Mizoram. So for this, we have invoked, this idea of democracy deepening. And I think, this idea help us, to explain why we consider, the emergence of ZPM, as something, which, where the Mizo society or the Mizo public at large, has a reclaimed democracy. Now, if you look at the political history of Mizoram, it is quite unique or significant in a sense that democratic or democracy deepening was something that happened from bottom up.
Hmm.
It was something which is very very grassroots in nature,
Hmm.
and that which means that it was the people who demand a democratic political setup.
Hmm.
Now this requires a little bit of context. Traditional Mizo society is divided into two class, that is the chief
Okay.
class and the commoners.
Right.
Now the chief enjoy several privileges, and they are the they function as autonomy, or they are sovereign within the village. So that the chiefs are very very instrumental not only in the political life of the people, but they're also very important in the socio-economic life of the people. But in politics, what we see is that with the annexation of Mizoram under British Indian Empire, the institution of chieftainship has undergone a significant transformation. Now, the chiefs were no longer engaged in intertribal warfare. The chiefs were no longer, engaged in mobilizing their public, for various, traditional, practices like such as hunting. So the chiefs were reduced to, a mere eyes and ears of the colonial state, and their main role was reduced to, taxation. That is one part. Another part is that many individuals who were favorable to the colonial state were awarded the title of chiefs.
Okay.
Now, chiefs, so the image of the chief, has also underwent a significant transformation in the eyes of the people during colonial period. Now, the chiefs were no longer seen as a protector, but rather, as an institution of the colonial system that suppressed the rights of the people, socially, economically, and politically, because there was no space for dissent, there was no space for discussion. Now, this culminated into the formation of Mizo Union in the year 1946, which has taken forward, the movement to abolish chieftainship. And this abolishment of chieftainship would not have been possible without the support of the commoners. And so therefore in Mizoram, any political party who wanted to win any election, whether it is the village council, whether it is the state assembly election, needs to have needs to be very very deeply rooted in the grassroots. So until and unless a political party has a grassroots, has a mass-based support from the
Hmm.
grassroots, that is from the bottom of the society, then there is no way that a political party will achieve a success. So
Hmm.
therefore, in our reading and analysis, Mizoram has undergone significant political transformation in the last 70 75 years of India's independence. One was the overthrowing the chief. Second was the period of armed struggle, the 20 years of armed struggle, and then that culminated in the establishment of Mizoram as a separate statehood. And the third political transformation that we consider important is the coming of ZPM, in a way that where the commoners themselves has again expressed themselves using the ballot to change who will rule them. So I'm going to stop here. I'm sure Joseph will have something to add.
Okay, will I continue or?
Sure, sir. Sure.
Okay, I will not take long this time, but what we have seen in our article is that we talk about the Mipui Sarkar, means people Sarkar, people government. So the one of the promise of the Kalpungtara is that it is the government for the people. Actually, among the people and among the neutrals, what people have always complained is that whenever the Congress and MNF party came to power, they always give priority to the party, the unit, the block, and the headquarters, and all these things. So most of the development they complain is that goes to the party only. So like, unlike other two party, this time the Kalpungtar, this new government, what they promised during the time of election is that they didn't promise anything like distribution of money like SEDP or NLUP, New Land Use Policy by the Congress, giving cash money to the people, and SEDP, Socio-Economic Development Program by the MNF. So they just promised that the government it will be government of the people, it will be for the people. So there will be no this uh, party leniency on their government system. So that's the things
Right.
because yeah. So it is the frustration, the stagnation, and the selective culture of the two other party that this new ZPM has promised to the people that Kalpungtar will be the Mipui Sorkar. That's the thing.
Absolutely. And I think one of you also mentioned, coming back to that point, that democracy in Mizoram has not evolved as sort of a import from the West, but rather something that grows at the base, at the grassroots. It's not something that is being supplanted in a top down fashion, but rather it works at a more bottoms up way. Coming to my next question, how did the ZPM's assertion of a new system of governance resonate with the voters in Mizoram, particularly in the context of the state's democratic culture and historical struggles against chieftainship? As you argue that ZPM's rise was not just, as commonly understood, an effect of anti-incumbency. Rather, the rise of the ZPM represents a far deeper socio-economic transformation in Mizoram.
Yeah, you can do.
Yeah. So yes, I will start with where Joseph ends. Is that he rightly pointed out that the political culture which was being established by the MNF and the Congress. One was that there is a lot of what in Mizo we call party indusatna, party mile sate indusatna. Basically, you are what is it? You prefer your own party members for jobs, for contract works, so on and so forth. Now, what the ZPM try to do, try to establish is a new form of democratic or political culture in the state, where they will not sideline or they will not ignore people on the basis of their older party affiliations. Basically, they wanted to project themselves as government of the people. Now, why do we argue that this coming of the ZPM needs to be understood within the wider historical change is largely because I have briefly mentioned in my previous response is that Mizoram politics has undergone significant transformation in the past, and one was as I have discussed before is the abolition of chieftainship,
Right.
as institutions. Now, in our reading, although we do not draw a parallel of what happened in the 1950s and what happened in today in Mizo society, but what we clearly see is that this is a kind of political assertion by the people themselves, where they decide and choose who should rule them. That is one. The other part of the story where we think it is important is that uh, Mizos have acted in ways from the outside. People, there is a common view that Mizos are quite complacent, particularly in the post-statehood period. But these 2023 elections, have again reminded us of the conscious ways in which Mizos engage with the state or democracy at large. That is by bringing ZPM to power.
Hmm.
Now, I think this is a kind of political earthquake that is happening in a sense that we don't know what where ZPM will take Mizoram to, but we definitely know that irrespective of the outcome in the next 3 to 4 years. But what we consider important is that the kind of political agency or the political assertion by the Mizo public cannot be missed in the in the recently concluded elections in Mizoram.
Absolutely. And mass mobilization and political participation is the fulcrum and cornerstone of any vibrant democracy. I think we can conclude this session with my last question, which is that you've time and again mentioned the promise of Kalpangthar. So, do you think that the ZPM will live up to this promise? And how far do you believe that the mainstreaming of ZPM reflects a larger yearning of the people for change? Both of you can share your concluding remarks.
Okay, I will try to make a brief comment on these things called Pungthar. Uh, what I have no, although I will not say I doubt, but the thing is that can there be a partyless democracy? That's the thing which India is also struggling from the very beginning. So because without a party, democracy cannot be functions uh, that we have been experiencing from the very beginning. So, but at least there should be a very systematic where people can be included. So that's the things which I think they are trying very hard. So as soon as they form a government, the chief minister has announced the 100 days program, which they will fulfill within 100 days. That's the new thing which we have not seen in the earlier government. So they are trying very hard, but breaking the system is very difficult, as we all know. So with that, I don't know how far they are going to go, but they are trying hard, and the struggle will continue with that. And the promise, I don't know whether they will able to keep, but the expectation from the people is larger than the ability of the party. That I can say that. So with that, I will end my comments.
Yeah, so let me give my final remark. Well, I think, in a way, it is too early to say how much, the ZPM will deliver on its promise. But I think, it is already evident that, they are on the track, towards fulfilling some of the basic promises that, that they have, given to the people, during their election campaigns. But most importantly, I think, I think one can expect, one cannot expect, a change overnight, right? Change, any kind of, change takes time. And I think, the safest way, for me to say and to conclude is that, let us give ZPM a chance. Let us give ZPM some time. But I think the political mood or the public mood at large is very much in their favor, in a sense that, they have tried to demonstrate, in their everyday functioning of, of bringing about change. So they're
Hmm.
still on the track, and I think, time will tell, whether or not the party, live up to its promises or not. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. So, I guess by making sense of both of your remarks, it comes to the ground that the jury is still out on how far ZPM will live up to its promise. However, we will closely see. For now, we can call it a wrap to this session. Thank you both for sharing such insightful remarks about how complex factors um, of history, of sociology, and voter behavior all formulate into the incredibly nuanced fabric of Mizoram's politics. For those tuning in, Professor's article is available on our website. You can access it. And we would like to also take out this time to request you to subscribe to EPW and support us on our social media channels. Thank you very much to both of you again for joining
Okay,
into the session.